Hello, artisans. My name is Shonda, and welcome to my channel, Under the Needle Quilting and Crafts. How are you guys doing? I have not made a video, or I haven't uploaded a video in a while. I think the last video I did was my open gate unboxing back on the 8th. I did film an update video last week, Thursday, but I never uploaded it. And then it felt kind of weird because I said specifically in the video that it was Thursday. And then I didn't upload it Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. And then by the time I got to Sunday, it just seemed kind of weird to upload a video talking about, hey, happy Thursday. It just seemed ridiculous. So I'm refilming said video today. So I'm going to give you guys an update of what I'm working on. I'm going to tell you guys the quote that I've been focusing on. The quote that I have been feeling for the past week or so is... I wrote it down, but I don't remember where I wrote it down. But it's basically the gist of the quote is, I can't hear what you're saying because your actions are too loud. Basically, I know I'm bastardizing the quote in some way, but basically saying your actions, what you're doing, are not in alignment with what you're saying. So you're saying one thing and doing another. And what you're doing is so egregious, it's so loud that it just completely overrides everything you're saying. If someone tells you that they love you, but then, they push into oncoming traffic, those things don't align, right? So I've been living with that. And really trying to be a bit more mindful about people and how they act and how they treat me and how they talk to me and things like that. Just really wanting to, focus on what people are doing as opposed to what people are saying, because I feel like that's a more accurate way to gauge how someone feels about you or what they think about you is by what they're doing and not what they're saying. So I've been focusing on that over the past week, and it's been good. I like this. It feels, like I'm taking some type of action, even though I'm not actually doing anything. I feel like changing your mindset is an action, right? And that's what I'm trying to do here. I've expressed to you guys, my mental health issues. Some of it I believe is, my children getting older and not needing me as much. Some of it I feel like it's just hormonal and menopausal. Some of it might be kind of midlife crisis-y type stuff. I am in my late 40s. I'll be 49 next month. And this started for me a couple years ago. So I feel like it's just kind of a combination of things. And I've just been adopting, different strategies to deal with it. And I feel like mindset is the most important one, because if you change your mind and the way you think about things, the way you think about people, the way you think about yourself, the way you think about your own life and your struggles and your successes, I feel like that is the kind of the key to peace. Right? Because I'm not really looking for happiness here. Of course we want to be happy, but for me, my goal is peace. Right? And so I need to take active steps to gain and maintain that peace. And I lost it for a while, and I lost my way for a while. And I've just been trying to slowly get that back. So that's what I've been focusing on for the past week. I can't hear what you're saying because your actions are too loud. Or your actions are so loud that I can't hear what you're saying. I feel like that's a better way to phrase it. I don't remember if that's how the quote phrased it or not, but I feel like that's a better way to phrase it. Your actions are so loud that I can't hear what you're saying. All right. So, what have I been doing? Just quick wrap up. Saturday, the 9th was my daughter's 23rd birthday. Happy birthday, Dariah. My family gets together the second Saturday of every month to celebrate the birthdays for the people who were born that month. And my daughter was one of those people. So we got together, the family, and we got to see her, she's 23. So, birthdays are a little bit different as you grow up as you get older. But I did give her an Amazon gift card, and there was some deodorant that she wanted, like a 10 pack of Dove deodorant, the spray deodorant. So I got her that. So, it's been about $150 or so, like that. I feel like that's reasonable, for a birthday present. And, she is she's my middle child. I don't know. She's the only one out of the house. So she's the only one that I'm not supporting in some way. Well, actually, that's not even true, because she's under 26, she's still on my health insurance. So that's a bill that she doesn't have, because mom still pays for the health insurance, and she's still on my cell phone plan. So I pay her cell phone bill every month. So in some ways, I still support her, right? In some ways, it's nominal. I try to remind her, because I feel like she forgets sometimes, like, hey, I still support you in some way. Because if you had to pay your own health insurance and your own phone bill, that would be potentially, I don't know, $300 a month out of your pocket that you're saving because mom's got it. So, and I'm fortunate with my health insurance, because it doesn't matter how many children I have, at least for now. Who knows what they're going to be doing later, what they're going to change. But at least for now, whether I have one child or 10 children, it's the same price. Right? So if I, cover... That's why when Adrian's daughter moved in with us, I put her on my health insurance, because it wasn't going to cost me any additional money to do so, because I've already got my son and my middle daughter. My oldest daughter has aged out because she's 29, so I don't cover her anymore. But the middle daughter and my son, I'm still covering. So there was no reason to not cover my stepdaughter on my insurance, because it wasn't going to cost me any extra money. So, now... maybe if it did, I might be like, hey, girlie, I'll still carry you on my insurance, but you're going to have to give mom $100 or something to offset that cost. But since it doesn't cost me anything, it's a net benefit to her. Doesn't cost, like I said, it doesn't cost me anything. So anyway, that's not what this was about. But anyway, so we went to my uncle's house, hung out there for a little while, had a good time. They had food and all that stuff, but I didn't eat. We just kind of fellowshipped and had a good time, laughed, had a few beers. It was good. And then that next day, one of my cousins and her husband, we had invited them over, because they had their goddaughter with them. And we have the pool. And so they came over and hung out, and we had a couple of drinks and got in the pool and all that stuff. And my sister popped up with her husband. And so just the six of us kind of hung out and had a good time that Sunday. Adrian put some food on the grill. He made some cheese dip. It was a good time. We had a good time. I'm not a super social person, so I don't have people over a lot. But it was a good time. It was fun. It was really fun. As far as last week, it was all about trying to find a washer dryer. I'm still on that hunt. I'm still looking for one, because mine died. And the roof guy came last week as well, and gave us some pictures and some information about where the leak was coming from and what was going on up there. So we were able to get a quote on a full roof repair, and we were able to get a quote on a full roof replacement and a repair. The replacement we're not going to be able to do right now. I'm still working on fixing some of my credit issues, and so I couldn't get financing for like $15,000 unsecured to do a full roof repair. I'm hoping in a year my credit will be better. It's going to cost more, of course, because the costs of goods are going to go up, which really sucks. But if you don't have it, you don't have it, and I don't have $15,000 right now to replace my roof. So I'm going to have to wait and hope the cost doesn't go up too much over the next 6 to 12 months. And hopefully my credit score, which has been slowly going up, I've been paying down debt. And that's why this kind of sucks right now, because life always hits you when you're trying to make progress, right? When you're trying to climb yourself out of whatever situation you're in, that's when life just wants to go, but that. So, yeah, so that's what I've got going on. So we'll be doing the repair, because the repair is like $1,900, and I can swing $1,900, just not $15,000. So we're going with the repair. They're going to be coming this week to do it, Wednesday and Thursday. I'll be happy about that, because then I'll know that they've cleaned all that stuff up there, all that mold is gone, and I'll no longer have a leak down here. So, such is life. Forgive my hair. It is in transition. I took all the fake hair out. I left it in way too long, so it took me like 2 days to detangle my hair. And I'll be washing it today, and I'll be getting it done next week. I don't know what I'm getting done exactly, but I'll be getting something done. But it's been a journey. It's been a journey. So this week, last week I was looking for a hairstylist for myself and my stepdaughter, a new washer and dryer, and repairing the roof. So that's what my personal life has been up to. As far as my crafting life, we're doing what we can here. I'm in my final push here. I'm going to be trying to do as much crafting as I can today and tomorrow, because the roof guy comes on Wednesday, and I'm going to have to move all my stuff out of the way so that they have room to work, right? Because they have to literally replace a piece of the ceiling up here, right? So I'm going to have to figure out where to put all my stuff, and all that, Maybe I'll stash it in my son's room. He went to Florida with his friends. His friend's mom, they take an annual trip to Florida, and they invited him last year, and they invited him this year. So he's gone until the 20th. So maybe I can stash some of my stuff in his room. I don't know, but I'm going to have to put some stuff somewhere. So I don't know what that's going to look like yet. I'm not looking forward to it. I'm going to do the best I can. All right, so crafting. I did pick up my star blanket. If those of you who watch my channel, I was working on the viral 6-day star blanket. I did pick that back up and figured out where I was, because I was so frustrated when I put it down that I didn't remember where I was. And so I picked that back up to figure out where I was, and then I put it down because it's heavy. It's hard to work on a heavy blanket when it's so hot, like when it's warm outside. So I haven't gotten much done, but I did figure out where I was, and I finished the row that I was working on when I quit. So I did do that. Oh shoot. That was a bug. It was a bug. It was a bug. I get a lot of bugs down here because this is basically a garage. But also my outside door has like a gap in it, and I need to replace the door. I either need to replace the door, or I need to put something up there to keep the bugs out, because the frogs, the lizards, the salamanders, the bugs, they can just come right through the gap in the door. And not just that, but when I get heavy rains, I have to put something down because the rain will come through the gap in the door also. So it's just a lot. It's a lot. So I got done. Last time I came on, I showed you guys this blanket that I had worked on, and that it needed, I think at the time, I had quilted it and trimmed it, but it needed to be bound. So I did go ahead and bind it. So the binding is done. Yay, yay. So this is a completed project, because I think when I counted my whips, I think I counted like 22, but I think after taking a second glance, it's more like 25. So this is one less. This is one less whip. This will likely get donated. I won't likely keep this. I probably won't keep this. So that was one done. So I was really happy about that. And then I had another blanket. This was from I believe the 2020 Sew Social. So SEW Sew Social, SEWCIAL. I don't know if they still do it, but it was like an annual thing that they would do. I don't know when it started, but I started in 2020. And basically what would happen is there would be like a bunch of quilt shops. How many quilt shops? Because you would do one block from each shop. And it was basically a way for the quilt shops to kind of get to know people, or not, for people to get to know them, I should say. So let's see. That's 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It looks like 12. Looks like 12. But you would reach out to each individual quilt shop, and when I did it, the cost was only $4.99. So you paid $4.99, and they would send you die cut pieces to make one block. And so when you reached out to all 12 quilt stores, you would have all 12 blocks. And then some of those stores did a finishing kit. I bought the cheapest finishing kit available, and I believe it was from Villa Rosa Designs, VILLA Rosa, ROSA Designs, because they had the cheapest finishing kit. I believe their finishing kit was like $80 or something like that, which was like vastly cheaper than everyone else. And so I went with that one. But so I had put the whole quilt together, and I had did the quilting. Basically just some stitch in the ditch. This is my backing. And then I trimmed it. I prepared the binding strip, but never put it on. So I got that done. This was just a fun little project to put together. Again, because the blocks were all pre-cut, die-cut pieces. So you basically just put all your blocks together, and then you get the finishing kit. This finishing kit was really easy because I've just got some 4 patches, right? And then some squares, some plain squares. And that was basically what this finishing kit entailed. It was very easy to do. But there you see one of the blocks. I know that they did this other years. I saw it for 2021 and 2022, I believe. I think the last time I saw it, the price had gone up $1, and it wasn't $4.99 anymore. It was $5.99. And I almost pulled the trigger, but I didn't know how much the finishing kits were going to be. And I need to know that up front, because when I first did the Sew Social in 2020, I had no idea how much the finishing kits were going to be, or anything like that. So, when the kits came out, I had a little sticker shock. I was like, some of it was, expensive, and these are boutiques, so I get it, but so I'm not paying $150 for a finishing kit. I'm not doing it. And the thing is, if you don't get the finishing kit, then you don't have matching fabric. So there's that. And actually, no, I didn't stitch in the ditch on this. I just stitched near the ditch. So I stitched a 1/4 inch away from the ditch. And I used this variegated thread that has all the colors in here. It's got greens and pinks and purples. It's hard to see. But yeah, so I got this bound. So that's another project completed. Yay me. So that's 2 whips down, right? And for the open gate quilt box, I started that project. I was super excited about it. We are making a bag. I've got both of my blocks completed and quilted. Again, I just did some stitch in the ditch. Just keep it simple. It's a bag. So yeah, now I just got to finish putting this together. I haven't trimmed the blocks because that other blanket I just showed you guys, this batik one here, I had trimmed it, and as I was putting the binding on, I noticed that in some places that stitching had started to unravel. You can't see here, or maybe you can. See how it's not really a stitch, it's just a loose piece of thread. And that's because I chose to capture that thread in my binding. I pulled it over to the side and made sure that I sewed over that when I did the binding. But basically the lesson that I learned is do not trim your quilt until you are ready to put your binding on. Do not trim your quilted piece until you're ready to put your binding on, because that binding will start to unravel. I mean, unless you do a lock stitch at the beginning when it touches the fabric, which I don't. So for me, I normally start my quilting in the batting that's outside the quilt top. So then when I trim it, I'm losing all of that. So if you're the type of quilter that you do a lock stitch right at the edge of the fabric and then you start sewing, then you'd be fine to trim your quilt. But since I don't, and I just start from the backing and the batting area, for me, I cannot trim my pieces until I am ready to bind, so that I don't have that unraveling. So this will be donated. Hopefully whoever it goes to will get some use out of it before the stitching starts to unravel. But I don't know. I'm going to try to see what I can do about it. Like, see this one here? It just kind of came out. So, once this is laundered, this can really start to make its way out. So I think what I might end up doing for some of these, I might just go ahead and take some of the quilting out and then tie a knot and bury the threads. So even though it won't be quilted all the way to the side, at least it won't be unraveling. I'm considering that. It's going to depend on how many there are. So yeah, lesson learned for me. Don't trim your quilt until you're ready to bind. For my crochet work, I've done a little bit more on this blanket here, so it's coming along. My tension is all over the place on this blanket, and I don't care. I deliberately tightened up my tension because I was worried about having enough yarn, but it's just the tension is much looser down here, and the blanket just has a better drape than it does up here, where my tension is a bit tighter. But again, I was concerned about running out of yarn. I have loosened the tension up a tiny bit in these later rows, but I much better prefer like the flowiness of this side of the blanket as opposed to the more stiffness of this side of the blanket. But at the end of the day, it's going to be something I donate or give away anyway, because I do this for my mental health, not to have 50,000 blankets lying around my house. And the last thing I did was long time ago, I had started on this dishcloth. I had ran out of this variegated print here, and then I had moved to this print. And then I stopped. I never finished the cloth. I could not remember the stitch pattern that I was using, so that's why it looks so different up here than it does here, because it's a completely different stitch pattern. And that's okay. It's just going to be a rag from my kitchen. So those are the things that I worked on. I don't think there was anything else that I did. Oh, Adrian and I went camping. I forgot. We went camping. So my cousin and her husband who came to visit last weekend, they offered to pick up our stepdaughter and bring her to their house so she can kind of get out of the house, hang out a little bit before school starts on a week from today. And then my son, he was going to be gone going to Florida. So we were just kind of by ourselves and we were looking for something to do. At first we thought about going to the beach. But Adrian had to work that Saturday. And by the time he got home, by the time we got to the beach, like it would have been kind of late and it would have been kind of a waste to get a room. So then we would have had to leave like Sunday morning. Because by the time we got to the beach, it would have been like 5 o'clock. And that's a little late for me. Normally I'm wanting to leave by 5 or 6, not get there at that time. So, we were just looking for other stuff to do. And we had talked a long time about going camping with the kids. You know, we had a tent and all that stuff. And so we were like, hey, you know, why don't we try this out? Just me and you, see how this goes to see if this is something something we'd want to do with the kids or not. And so we went out there to Falls Lake and we went online before we got there and reserved an area that had electricity and water and took the tent and we went out there and we put the tent up and then we had a 10 by 10 pop-up tent that we put over our tent. I don't know why we did that. Honestly, I don't think that was necessary, but we did. Now I didn't mind it. I honestly didn't mind it. I think the only thing that was the problem was, you know, even though it wasn't super hot over the weekend, even though it wasn't super hot Saturday, it was warm enough. It was warm enough. And this is North Carolina. The humidity is horrible out here. The humidity is like dangerous. And I brought 2 small, like individual fans, but we should have bought our box fan. So like being inside the tent to set up the air mattress and all that stuff, like we're just sweating. Going to sleep was difficult. I didn't sleep well because we went to the pier. So after we got our tent all set up, we played some Uno for a little bit and then we walked to the pier. And when we got back, it was maybe like 9 o'clock or something, 9:30. And Adrian kind of laid back on the bed and he fell asleep. I sat up for a little while in some of the chairs that we had. We had 2, you know, folding chairs, you know, that you take to picnics and stuff. And so I sat in the chair for a little bit. He kind of fell asleep. So I got tired and I kind of laid next to him and fell asleep for a couple hours. Then when he woke up, he was like, hey, we need to get right in this bed because we were, you know, the wrong way in the bed, right? So if this is the bed and you're supposed to be laying this way, we were laying this way. So he's like, and he's a lot taller than I am. I'm 5'1", so I can lay that way and still be on the bed. He cannot. So he was like, hey, you know, let's shift. And so I guess just being in a strange bed, being on an air mattress that moves, not being on the side of the bed that I normally sleep on, all of this, and then plus the fact that I had already slept for a couple hours and then woke up, sleep was a wrap for me. I'm one of those people that if I fall asleep and then I wake up, oftentimes it is very difficult for me to go back to sleep. That's why I normally tell people, do not wake me up. Like if I fall asleep on the couch, just let me stay there. Let me stay there. Because if you wake me up, the chances of me being able to go back to sleep are like, it's like 70% I'm not going to be able to go back to sleep. A lot of times if I wake up in the morning and I need to use the restroom and I look at the time and it's like 4 o'clock, I'll just try to close my eyes and go back to sleep. Because the fact of the matter is the act of getting up, going to the bathroom and getting back in the bed, most times I can't go back to sleep. Sometimes I can, most times I can't. And I can normally tell. So I basically got up out of the bed and basically got in the chair and put my feet up on the cooler that we bought and watched videos on my phone. And I guess at some point I dozed off at like 4 or 5 in the morning. Adrian got up around 6:30, 7ish, and packed his stuff to go to the pier to get some fishing done. So he went to the pier, did some fishing, and then at that point, I went and got in the bed and kind of laid around for a little bit, and eventually took a 2-hour nap from like 8 to 10 or something like that, 8:30 to 10:30 something. So that was how I spent. And then he came back and we, got everything together. Now, my main issues is that, again, we had a tent, and for one night it was fine. But for multiple nights, I would need more accommodation, right? Because there is a bathroom, but it's a little ways to get to the bathroom. You got to walk from your campsite to the bathroom. We didn't have an RV. Everybody around us had an RV, but we just had a tent. So, the bathroom was a 5-gallon bucket, right? So that's what I was using to go number one. If I had needed to go number two, of course, then I would have had to go to the bathroom. I would have had to walk to the bathroom. But just going number one, like, I'm not going back and forth like that to the bathroom. I'm just not. So I'm a big girl. I'm used to going to the bathroom outside. My mother trained me from when I was a very small girl, because she used to take me places and there wasn't always a bathroom available. So I learned at a very early age how to do those things outside and not be embarrassed or ashamed about it. So I had coverage, so there was privacy, right? There was privacy, but yeah, going in a bucket was not, it was just it was hot. It just wasn't, I would need more accommodations is what I'm saying. So I think for me, I know I would have to see, I'm sure they make it, but I would try to have some kind of small portable porta-john. And what I mean by that is I would want some type of small tent with a little small, bathroom, mock toilet, I guess you could call it. I'm sure that they exist. I have not looked it up, but I feel confident they exist. And I feel like for maybe a weekend, 2 nights, I'd be fine. Me and the bucket would be just fine for 2 nights. But anything more than that, if we wanted to do anything more than that, like if we wanted to do a week, like me and the bucket would not, I'm going to need more than a bucket, right? Now, we understand we're going to have to dispose of what's in the bucket. We're adults here. I get that. That's fine. I'm fine with that. But just the act of hovering over a bucket is not something that I want to do long term. And, and when you're outside and you're in the heat, you're going to drink more fluids. And I was like, should I drink this water? Because if I drink this water, I'm going to have to go to the bathroom, and if I have to go to the bathroom, I'm going to have to be sweating and hovering over a bucket. And is that what I want to be doing at 11 o'clock at night, right? So I don't want to have to think about those things. So I think, and we had an 8-person tent. It was just the 2 of us. And we had an 8-person tent. And I think that that's fine for a max of 2 days. A max of 2 days. That would be fine for. Anything, maybe we could push 3 days, maybe. But for me, I would want a little bit bigger tent, maybe a 12-person tent. Because I could see myself going out there for a week. I could see that, but I would need a 12-person tent. So there's just a little bit more room to stretch out. And I'm a short person. So when I'm in the center of the tent, I can stand. Adrian can't, but when I'm in the middle of the tent, I can stand up. So if the tent was a little bit bigger, I could probably stand up for more. But, the act of like having to crunch down and hunch down, it does start to wear on you. But yeah, I think for me, I would want a little bit larger tent, maybe a 12-person tent if we're going to do it for a week. Because I was telling him, I was like, hey, if we camp locally, you could still go to work. Like, we could still go to work. You know what I mean? Like, if we camped locally, we could be camping and then he could just get in the car and drive to work and then come back to the campsite. I wouldn't necessarily want to do that with the kids, but that's something that we could consider. But in order to do that, I would need a little bit bigger tent, like I was saying, and I need a better way to use the restroom. So either I would need to get a campsite that's right next to the bathrooms so that it's a really quick walk, and not like a 15-minute one, I would need something like that. I need better access to be able to use the restroom. So yeah, but other than that, it was a good time. There was some teamwork in putting the campsite together. Putting the tent up. Putting the pop up tent on top of the tent. It was a group effort, so it was nice to kind of have a task and be working together to do something. I feel like those help strengthen the bonds of a relationship when you're having to struggle to do stuff. And it was great to kind of put our phones down and walk to the pier, and hang out there for a little bit. So it was a nice time. I'm glad we went. It's relatively inexpensive. It was $40 to camp for one night. And like I said, we had electricity and water. We didn't really use the water except to clean out the bucket. That's what we used the water for. We didn't bathe in the water. That would be something we would have to figure out as well. If we were going to be there longer, we would have to consider, bathing and how we're going to do that. Because since we were there the one night, that wasn't a consideration for us because we were able to just come home on Sunday and take a shower. So, yeah. Anyway, it was a good time. It was a good time. It was my first time, like, really, truly camping. I think the only other time I kind of camped was when I was a kid. We had a sleepaway camp, and we were in but we were in cabins. We were in cabins. So this was the first time I've ever like pitched a tent and slept outside. I felt surprisingly safe because there were so many people around. Like there were so many people. It was like absolutely crazy. Like in the little loop that we were in, like there was an RV in every camp. I'm trying to think if there were any empty campsites in our immediate vicinity, in our little kind of, looks like a little cul-de-sac the way it's designed. I don't know if all lakes are like that, but this particular one, they call it a loop. But in our little cul-de-sac, our little grouping of campsites, I don't think there were any empty campsites. Yeah, I don't, there weren't, if there were, there might have been one, maybe, but like there was like literally a campsite right next to us, two campsites over here. And yeah, there's space, but everybody's within hollering distance. Everybody's within, like, you can see me, you can see each other, which is one of the reasons why we put the 10 by 10 pop-up on top of our tent, was just to give us a little bit more privacy, because there were, quite a few people out there. And it was a good time. Some people, they had their RVs, and I was so jelly. But that I had to remember, comparison is the thief of joy, right? So while I was out there in my tent sweating, they had their RVs that they could go into with their air conditioning. And, it's at first I wanted to be like, well, dang, I wish I had an RV or a fifth wheel so I could have some air conditioning while I slept, or so that I could, have a bug-free place to go, or, that type of thing. So I could have a toilet, that would be great. But then I had to remind myself, there are a lot of people that would have liked to have had the experience that I had that couldn't, right? So instead of focusing on the people who had something that I didn't have, I had to focus on what I did have, and how there would be people out there that would want the experience that I was having, that that would be, a dream come true for them to be able to have that experience. And so I had to remind myself to not focus on what I didn't have, and to instead focus on what I did have. I had a partner. We were able to work as a team to get our site set up. We were able to hang out together and play some games. We were able to take a walk together. We were able to do a little fishing. We were able to chill out and have some calm and some peace. It was very peaceful. I really enjoyed myself. And so I had to focus on my personal experience and not focus on the experiences of others. So, that was how I've spent my time. It's been that's how I spent my time. It was great. It was a good time. It really was a good time. I really would like to do it again. Um, I think it's a lot. Like say putting up the tent and like packing all that stuff for one night was a lot. But I do think that this could be something that he and I could do without the kids for like 2 nights. Because he's off Sundays and Mondays. So we could theoretically, after he gets off work on Saturday, we could drive out and set up a tent and stay Saturday night and Sunday night and come back Monday morning so I can work and he's off that day. So he's got a day to recover and I can work from home. So these are things that we can do. So I don't know. Just want to share that with you guys. Just how these quotes, the mindfulness that I'm trying to practice has really been helping me kind of keep my mind right. Because like I said, looking around and seeing everybody in a daggone RV, everybody, nobody's pitching a tent. But then as we were driving out and we were leaving the park, I saw a lot more tents. I saw a lot of people that had, that had tents and that families, like people out there with their kids with multiple tents. And you could tell there's a larger tent and then a couple of smaller tents. And that could be a family and those could be child tents, or maybe those could be porta potty tents. But, we weren't the only people out there in tents, but it felt like it in the moment. Like in that section we were in, it felt like we were the only people in a tent and everybody else had this big old fancy RV. And just the mindfulness practices that I've been doing over the past, couple of months and remembering these quotes really helped to kind of it helped me pull myself back out of that negative spiral and focus on the positive. So that's what I'm here to do. That's what I hope you guys are doing, focusing on the positive. That is it for me. I have talked way too long. Like, comment, subscribe. It really does help me in the algorithm. I do really appreciate it when you guys leave comments. I know I don't always respond, but I do read your comments. So that is it for me, and I will see you guys on the next one.